Hey everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're going to be doing another steampunk segment, and I haven't done one. I didn't realize. I went back and looked. It's been 6 months since I last did the other one, and that was on the belts. This one is on the gears, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Right here, I'm bringing in just a sheet of clay. I've rolled this thing out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and I've got a 4x4-inch square, and I used this last time when I did the belts. I did the same dimensions, and I thought, let's go ahead and do this again. And there's a reasoning behind all of this, but you'll have to wait until I get to the point where I can go ahead and divulge what I know. Yes. Anyways, I'm making that square piece, and then I'm going to set this piece aside. I'm then going to bring in some scrap clay, and we're going to start making molds of these metal gears that I found at my craft store. Now, once I push these gears into the clay, I'll bake it at 275 degrees, let it cool, and then this way then I'll have a mold to make more gears from. Now, I like the metal gears. They're great. However, when I think about it, I want to be able to do this in clay and not metal. I mean, yeah, you could do this with metal gears alone, but I really like the idea of being able to make some gears and do it all from polymer clay. The nice thing about this is that when I do them from clay, I can make a bunch of them. So I don't have to go out and buy a ton of metal pieces. Instead, I can go ahead and replicate these same pieces over and over again and use a whole bunch of them all at once. Now, here's the thing. I am taking my regular scrap clay and I'm just going to push this over these little metal pieces, and I'm going to form a mold. Now, I want to tell you right away, this did not work. Just like the title said, this did not work for me. And a lot of it was because it works in the regard that you could push clay into the mold and you can peel that clay back up again, fresh clay that has not been baked, and you'd have the image. However, that being said, if you go to cut it out and everything else, you still have the thickness of the clay. If you want that clay to be super thin, you really can't get it without having a lot of problems, okay? The thing is, though, if you try to use liquid clay in a clay mold, it just plain will not work. And you can see that right here. I've got that liquid clay in here, and I'm using my needle tool to kind of lift it. It will not lift out. And it was so hard that I almost kind of hurt myself. Plus, as you're trying to get it out, it gets destroyed, and the mold itself is even destroyed. So if you're going to use a clay mold, use it as almost a texture sheet. You really can't use it in the regard of making a mold and popping it out, okay? That's where that mold putty is so wonderful. Now this time around, I took my mold maker and I thought, okay, let's go ahead and push the gears into the polymer or into the mold making stuff. And you know what? That didn't work either. I really had some trial and error here, people. It did not go over well. But I want to show you what I did do so that you know, okay, this is something I don't want to do, and you won't have to go through these same mistakes that I made. Now, I know you guys are thinking, wait a minute, she just said the mold maker was wonderful, right? And it is. It really is. You just got to know how to use it correctly to get the results you want. And this was not it, because once I got the gears out of this mold maker stuff, right, and I've dusted it, and we're going to go ahead and start putting in the liquid clay. Because I pushed the gears into the mold maker, I had a bunch of bumps, okay? So it was really bumpy, and it made it where it was very difficult to try and get the liquid clay into my mold, and it was just very messy. And there was no way to really make it so that this would come out cleanly. And that's the thing here. We need to make this come out cleanly. So when I used my card, yeah, I could get some off, but it was very messy and it wasn't even, okay? And when I went to go and bake this, then when I tried to take it out of the mold here, I really found that it just did not come out cleanly. I mean, look at this. As soon as I take it out, look at all that extra stuff in the areas where it was supposed to come out cleanly. Yeah, that is not going to work. So I'm going to have to go back in with like an Exacto knife and try to peel that out. And even some of this, look at this, it didn't even come out well. So yeah, this is not going to work for me. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you exactly what you should do to make this work for you so you get some nice gears in the end. Okay, so let's try this again, okay? We're going to take out our mold putty and we're going to take equal parts of this, and I do this just by taking out a little bit, and we'll have an equal part of this. I roll it up into a ball and I try to make a similar ball with the yellow stuff. Once I have that, I'm going to push them both together, okay? And at first they're going to look caramelized, right? When I try to push them together or try to mess them up in my hands. Eventually, though, it'll go to a nice buttery kind of yellow. That's what you're going to want. You're going to want a solid color of that yellow. Once you have that yellow color, you're going to bring in your metal gears, and then you're going to push this stuff right over the top of it on your plate, okay? You're going to push it right over the top on your plate, and then you're just going to let that sit and make sure that it's all completely covered, your metal gear, and let that sit until it becomes nice and firm. Once you have that, this way then you can lift off this yellow sheet from the gears, and it should come off pretty nicely, you know, from your gears. It should have a perfect flat surface with the gears imprinted in it. So as I lift this up, you could tell I've got the gears, 1, 2, and 3. Now, that third one didn't give me a really great mold, and I discovered one other thing when doing this. Do one gear at a time. So in other words, when you put that mold putty together, you get a nice buttery yellow, put that mold putty over one gear at a time. Because sometimes, like with right here, I had this where I dusted it and I thought, okay, I'm going to just go ahead and try to make those gears. That last gear was a little bit wonky. It didn't just come off great, okay? But when I went to go and do them individually, it was wonderful. Worked out great. I was able to go ahead and put the liquid clay like I'm doing right here onto this nice surface, and you'll see just from, you know, the 3 that I have in here, bring in my card, swipe right against, and it brings off all that extra excess clay that I don't want. It's a nice smooth surface. I don't have to deal with those bumps. It works fantastic. So when I went to go and do this process with the individual molds, it was so much better because, one, I got a clean, absolutely perfect mold. I didn't have to worry about 3 at once, okay? I thought I could save time is really what I thought I could do, but it just didn't quite work. Now here I've got it where the clay has been baked in this mold, and I'm just taking my tissue blade and I'm just scraping away. There's usually a little bit of a layer of just very, very thin clay on the surface of this mold, and so I'm just scraping it away with my tissue blade. Now you can also use, I would say, like even a toothbrush or some kind of like brush to kind of take off that excess clay. But as soon as you do, and you will be able to tell as you're taking this extra clay off, that eventually you're going to come right down to the mold. Once you have that, you can go ahead and lift out the clay that's in the mold, and you'll have a perfect gear to work with. Now here's the thing. This gear, and just remember, I did all 3 of these. Like I told you, that final gear, you could tell where it's a little bit wonky, or where I had put the impression, you could tell I'm going to have to go back in and use my scissor to cut that extra piece off. I also apologize here. I use translucent clay, so it's a little hard to see these gears as they're coming out. It's like, oh, good one, Laura. But hopefully you get a decent idea as to how this all works. But yes, this will come off and it will come out, and you'll have a nice clean gear in the end, just like that right there. Now, I will warn you, sometimes when you scrape this, it is possible where you will scrape away a little bit of the mold. And that being said, that's why I said maybe come in with a softer brush, a toothbrush or something else, just to take that nice fine layer off of these gears. And here I realized, yes, you can't see it, so I put it on that gray. You might have noticed also there that I had some holes and stuff in the gears. Guess what? It's okay. In fact, I like that because to me, those little holes, those little pit marks kind of, and really they're kind of air bubbles in the clay. I like that because it gives it a little bit more of a vintage look in the very end. From here, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk as I take one individual gear and place the mold maker right over the top. And this way then you get a clear idea as to what that looks like. All right, so now we're going to come back to our 4x4 piece and we're going to start creating the pieces that need to go on this to create our gear picture. I have some of this red clay here and I'm just cutting this into strips. This was rolled out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. And some of these strips, they're going to be thin, some are going to be thick. It just kind of depends. And we're going to go ahead and create that belt feature like I did with my first steampunk a video that I had done. If you need to go back and reference that, I did, like I said at the beginning, I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't done an element in 6 months. So I thought it's definitely time to start moving this on. So I'm bringing in one of these pieces. I'm going to cut it flush, and then I'm going to use my needle tool to start making little stitched marks on here, giving the impression that it is kind of a nice leathery type strap with its stitches, okay? If you need to, like I said, go back and revisit that video that I first did on the belts. That might help you. And you'll see also in that particular video, as you're going to see here, that I will start to link in each of the gears with these straps, okay? So I wanted to bring an element of the original steampunk that I had done before with the belts, just the one element, and bring it in a little bit into this picture piece. The rest of it, though, will be all based on the gears themselves. Okay, so we're going to be bringing in some of these stitch belts that I've made, and I'm also going to be bringing in my gears. I'm going to cut this piece flush, but some of them are going to come off of this square as well. I'm going to bring in these gears, and what we're going to do is we're going to thread them through with our belt and then just kind of fold it over. Now when we do this, I'm going to bring in a couple of dots. I'm also going to bring in my screwdriver and my flathead and my addition sign one. I don't know how else to call it. And we're just going to go ahead and imprint those, making them into like it was like some metal pieces that went through the leather, and it's adhering it in, holding the gears as they hang. So that's pretty much how we're doing this little area right here. I'm also going to bring in my needle tool, and I'm going to go ahead and create some line, and I'm also going to take some more of those strips that I've made in the pink, and I'm going to roll them up like little Tootsie Rolls, and we'll be using them in the design as well. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and once again let you guys watch my hands talk as I start forming up this gear picture. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move into our metallic paints and start using those. But before we start doing that, I need to bring in that black matte paint that I usually use, and we need to paint up everything. So that means the square piece, everything on it, as well as all of these individual little pieces of metal gears that we've created. Once we get these all painted up and they've dried up, then we can bring in all of our metallic paints and start painting each of these up individually, whatever colors we wish. So right here, I'm going back to my original background, and it's been all painted black for me. And I'm bringing in my gunmetal gray. And I had used this on my belt section, or I should say my belt picture too, because I decided to use like a gold, and I had the gunmetal as another piece of the background that was painted like that. And I wanted to tie it in to this piece here. So that's why I'm using a little bit of the gunmetal gray. And then this time around though, I'm not going to be using that gold. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my sequin black, which is kind of like a glittery or a very slight glittery kind of black in acrylic paint. And I'm going to use that in a few sections on the background, and then the gunmetal will be on the other. When it comes to the rest of it, again, it's all going to be in the different metallics, and those will be Silver Anniversary, number 506, Golden Touch, number 36221, Copper, number 664, Sahara Gold, number 577, and Chocolate Brown, 2570, as well as my Rose Gold, number 6102E. So with each of these paints, I'm going to go ahead and paint different sections on the background piece, as well as the different gears on there. And then I'm also going to come in and start painting some of the free-floating gears I have not put into this piece yet. From here, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys watch my hands talk as I complete up the fundamental painting part of my picture with gears. Now that I've painted up all of my main pieces, I'm going to start gluing them in onto those little Tootsie Roll kind of stands. This is where the three-dimensionalism really comes into play. It is such a cool aspect to this particular piece. I also have these tiny little dots that you saw me cut out earlier. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take two of them, I glue them together, and then I glue it down into the center. I'm going to use that where I can go ahead and I can paint over it. I'm going to use my rose gold in that regard. Or I can go ahead and put another disc or another gear on top of that and build off of it, which you're going to see me start doing a little bit more of. So again, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys just watch my hands talk as I complete up putting some of the fundamentals to this gear piece together. All right, so now I'm going to start adding in my final touches, and that's really just using my rose gold, where I'm going to be painting the very centers of where all these gears are at, and then also bringing in my chain, my metal chain, to kind of tie it all together, if you will. That's terrible. So again, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys just watch my hands talk as I finish up this piece completely. Alright, so this is the end result of creating my steampunk gears in polymer clay. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.